A service of KIBMradio.com, the Internet's home for an all old-time radio.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Command the children of Israel that they bring unto thee pure oil olive, beaten for the light, to cause the lamps to burn continually in the tabernacle of the congregation. And it shall be a statute forever in your generations.
The eternal light. The National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations present The Eternal Light, a new series of programs offered as a public service. It has been prepared under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Chapter 1 is entitled, A Rhode Island Refuge. Following the dramatic portion of the program, we will hear a brief message by the Honorable Edgar J. Nathan, Jr.
They call it the old Jewish cemetery of Newport. From Narragansett Bay, the land breeze rustles in the trees, and the Rhode Island sun is clean and friendly on our graves. They sleep so still beside me. Once, so long ago, they fled from Spain and Portugal, fled before the Inquisition. And they wandered over the earth again. And here in Rhode Island, they found refuge. And now they sleep, a final refuge, the last exodus. The headstones mellow in the rain. Lopez, Alvarez, Levi, Seixas, Turo. But over my grave there is no tablet, only a nameless stone the color of earth. It does not matter. The grass is my comfort, and it is warm and green and living. And yet once I had a name and also a history. My name was Mordecai, a good name, and Benjamin was my father, a good man. And in the year 1760, when I was a boy, my father read to me from the Bible.
It hath been told thee what is good and what the Lord doth require of thee, only to do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with thy God.
We walked gladly with God, and we sang his praises in the new synagogue on Griffin Street. And why not? For in Rhode Island there was reverence for God and reverence also for men, which is a fine thing. It was not so in the other colonies, where Puritan persecuted Quaker and Anglican opposed the Catholic, and both opposed the Jew. My father told me this, and also how 23 Jews came to New Amsterdam, and how Peter Stuyvesant nearly turned them away. And he told me also how others came to Rhode Island, and what Roger Williams said.
All men may walk here as their consciences persuade them, and every one in the name of his God.
And for 5 generations after Roger Williams, we found sustenance in his words, and the colony of Newport prospered greatly, even beyond New York and Philadelphia. Aaron Lopez sent his ships far to the whale fisheries. Jacob Rivera introduced candles at Spermaceti. James Lucena made soap such as had been made before in Castile. And some were silversmiths and iron workers and merchants and simple farmers. And Benjamin, my father, was likewise a merchant with a shop on Long Wharf. I remember still how he quarreled with Maya Pollock and why it came to pass.
"10 casts of nails. Check. 15 bushels of wheat. Check. 100 pewter basins. Check. 1 fine looking glass. Check. 6 barrels of molasses. Benjamin, 6 barrels of molasses.
I heard you.
Well?
I don't like it.
To hear you talk, someone might think there was something wrong with molasses.
I want no part of it.
Are you crazy?
Molasses means rum, doesn't it?
Of course.
And rum means slaves, doesn't it?
What if it does? You're not trading in slaves.
Why not, Meyer?
Who cares why not?
I care, because it is written, thou shalt not abhor an Edomite, for he is thy brother.
Many things are written, and you can lose your mind trying to live up to it all.
Meyer, are you a Jew?
What has that got to do with it?
You can't be half a Jew or a quarter of a Jew or a fifth of a Jew. You have to do what is written.
Now, look here. Don't tell me what to do. I go to the synagogue every day as good as any man. I have faith in the Torah.
Faith isn't enough. You cannot be a Jew only with your lips. You're a Jew every hour, every moment, in every act.
Excuse me, Benjamin. When I need a sermon, I'll listen to Rabbi Turo. When I want to do business, I don't think I'll come here.
I'm not quarreling with you, Meyer, but I won't deal in molasses when it's the blood of the slave trade.
That's your last word?
If you wish.
Then goodbye.
Goodbye, Meyer.
They did not speak much to one another after that, and then they grew stiff-necked and did not speak at all. My father suffered for it, for how can a man bear to see injustice done without crying out? Yet, how can a man protest to one who will not listen? My father's business did not go well, but Meyer Pollock prospered. His ships went forth to Jamaica and Barbados, and they came back laden with good things. He dealt in molasses and in rum. And once my mother said,
"Perhaps Meyer's in the slave trade, Benjamin."
Bring the bread to the table, Rachel.
Well, it's only what people say.
People should learn not to slander a good man's name.
Did you ever hear of a rich man who was good?
Or a poor man's wife who wasn't envious?
Oh, be still, Benjamin. Here's the bread.
Wash your hands, Mordecai.
It's already washed. Say the blessing, Benjamin.
Blessed art thou, O Lord, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from out the earth.
Amen. Benjamin, isn't it true about Meyer?
No, it isn't true. We're no longer friends, and I know he talks against me. But it isn't true. The Jews of Newport do not deal in slaves. Now go ahead and eat your supper, Rich. Well, Mordecai, if you need a special invitation, eat your supper.
My mother ate her supper and smiled into her plate. And when she looked up and saw my father and saw that he saw her also, her eyes were wet. And I was glad for him and for her and for myself that I was their son. And as I grew older and took my place with the men in the synagogue, I saw that my father was as he was because he was bred to the Talmud, and my respect for the law of Israel did not diminish. And it happened many years later that Meyer Pollock lost his ships at sea and all his merchandise with it. And my father went to him.
No, it's you. What do you want?
I've heard of your loss, Meyer.
Get out.
Meyer.
Get out. Do your gloating outside.
I'm not gloating.
No?
No, Meyer. I've come to offer my help.
Don't be a fool. I've been your enemy.
And you're not my enemy now?
What makes you think so?
Even if you are, Meyer, you're wiped out. Let me help.
I really believe you mean it. Benjamin, you are a fool.
I don't have much to give, but take it.
Thanks, Benjamin. I shouldn't have called you a fool.
Why not? I suppose I am.
A good fool, then. You didn't believe I dealt in slaves, did you, Benjamin?
No. I didn't believe.
I didn't, you know. I could have, but I didn't. Once I tried, Benjamin. Then one day I found the book on a chair. Open, Benjamin. And the page was Leviticus. Stared at me.
I know the place.
Do you? It said something about not making your brother serve as your bondservant. Of all the pages in the Bible, Benjamin, it had to be open at that one.
For they are my servants whom I brought forth out of the land of Egypt. They shall not be sold as bondsmen.
That's it. Benjamin, I thought you ought to know that.
Glad you told me.
You'd better go now. If you stay any longer, I'll become a fool.
Meanwhile?
Like you, Benjamin. God willing.
There were many things my father said as I came to manhood, and I do not remember that anything he told me was false or insincere, or said merely for the sake of pious display. Each morning after prayers, we went to his shop on Long Wharf. And on Sabbath Eve, my mother would light the candles and make the benediction, and we would go together to the synagogue. Sometimes on the Sabbath after services, we would take the long way home and go among the quays and watch the boats dipping in the harbor and listen to the water slapping against the piles. How well I remember it. The Jews of Newport walking homeward, neat in their Sabbath dress, hungry for the warmed-over Sabbath meal. And our Christian neighbors stopped to shake a hand or to murmur a friendly good Sabbath. Sometimes I remember there would be a song, first from one pair of lips, and then caught up softly by the others as we walked. There were many songs, but this was my favorite. A simple song. Perhaps one my ancestors sang in Spain 300 years before. And perhaps also when it was no longer permitted, they whispered it to one another. Whispered it in their houses, or sang it loudly in the fields where none could hear. In Newport, it did not matter who heard. There was no need to whisper, no need to tremble. And we sang happily until we came to our houses. And within there was peace and serenity, and a table laden with good things. I wonder sometimes whether we're ever fated to have peace and serenity for long. For the colonies were impatient under the restrictions and the taxes of the Crown, and soon there was a feeling of tension and a sense of impending trouble, which made the Sabbath bitter as Mara and stifled the song.
Please, not all at once. That's better, isn't it? Let's do this thing democratically. We're here to make up our minds on some action, definite action. Moses Seixas, you haven't said anything.
I'll stand with the others, Benjamin.
You can count on me, Benjamin. We'll buy no British tea, pay no British taxes, import no British goods.
Yes.
How about you, Isaac Hart? You go along?
You know my opinion. All my life I've known you. I've broken bread with you. Our children have grown up together. We've liked each other, respected one another.
Get to the point, Isaac. Thy yes must be true, and thy no must be true. One must not say one thing with his mouth and another in his heart.
You have become quite a scholar of the Talmud, my Pollock.
I'm not a Tory, if that's what you mean.
And I'm not a rebel. I side with England. England is where I was born. England has done me nothing but good.
You live in Rhode Island, Isaac.
I see this is a democratic meeting. Everyone wants to talk and no one wants to listen.
Let him speak. Go ahead, Isaac.
You are all at this very moment guilty of rebellion.
Can you tell us what liberty has ever been accomplished without rebellion?
I see, Meyer, you are not only a scholar, you are also a philosopher.
Meyer, sit down, please. Isaac, let's speak without anger. We are friends here. We can settle our opinions quietly. This is our synagogue. It is unseemly to raise our voices here.
Yes, you are right. But every Jew in Newport is turned against me. Why? Because I am loyal to England? Would Roger Williams have been able to found Rhode Island colony if not for English tolerance? Would Spain have permitted you to live here unmolested? Don't you see the consequences of your rebellion? Many of you are merchants. If you stop importing British goods, you go bankrupt. Your children will be hungry. There may be bloodshed.
Some things can only be settled in blood.
The words roll so easily from your tongue, Meyer. Before you quoted the Talmud to me, I also can quote.
I'm listening.
Look in the Talmud in Sanhedrin. If someone should say to thee, kill or I will kill thee, it is better that thou be killed than to commit murder. Why don't you answer, Meyer?
Shall I answer for him, Isaac?
Yes, if you can.
2 answers, Isaac. The first Moses said, "Shall your brethren go into the war, and shall ye sit here?" The second you know also, Isaac. "Separate not thyself from the congregation."
You distort the meaning.
No, Isaac, the meaning is plain. The American colonies are your congregation. This is our place. We came here as the others came. We came for the same reasons. Pray God there will be no letting of blood. But if blood is to be spilled, our place is with the colonists.
Lexington came. We began to drill. Meyer and Moses Seixas went among the townspeople collecting saltpeter and brimstone. The guns from Fort George were removed to Newport. Sentries were posted on the hills. And 2 full months before the Declaration of Independence, Rhode Island declared itself free and independent. And with Rhode Island stood the congregation of Newport. The young men took up arms. Abraham Seixas and Solomon Rothé and Moses Isaacs and many more. And I with them. Then there were battles, and many of the redcoats were slain.
Rejoice, Isaac Hart.
And why should I rejoice, Meyer?
Because 100 redcoats have fallen.
When the angels began to sing as the Egyptians drowned in the Red Sea, God said, "Creatures of mine are drowning in the sea. How can ye sing a song?"
Meyer Pollock raised his hand to strike him. And then his hand fell to his side, and he turned away. Isaac Hart loved the king, and he did not fear to say so. He could have held his tongue, yet he would not. It came about that he was set on by a mob and killed. And even we, who shouldered the muskets of the Patriot Army, mourned the passing of a man who suffered death for loyalty's sake. But during the fight, there's little time for mourning. It is only later, when the living go into the fields to count the dead, that men can truly mourn. I was ordered to join the 8th Massachusetts Regiment, and before I went, my father took his musket and gave it to me.
Take it, Mordecai.
I'll try to use it well, Father.
When you were a little boy, I read you a few lines from the prophet Micah. You remember, Mordecai?
I remember, Father. It hath been told thee what is good, and what the Lord doth require of thee, only to do justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God.
I'm glad you remember. Now say goodbye to your mother, and don't let her cry. And, Mordecai.
Yes?
Be a good soldier. For Israel. And for America.
These were the last words I ever heard from my father's mouth. I went to war, and the congregation of Newport dispersed before the British invasion. The goods were burned, the warehouses emptied so that nothing could fall into the hands of the enemy. And then many years later, after the terrible winter of Valley Forge, Moses Seixas wrote me a letter.
My dear Mordecai, God be with you. My heart melts for thee, for I have nothing to give thee but bad news. Benjamin, your father, and Rachel, your mother, are no longer among the living. They went to settle in another place and to help the patriots, and a terrible sickness came like a plague and took them from the living. O Mordecai, Benjamin was a good man. He was eyes to the blind and feet to the lame, and a pillar of the synagogue. Truly it is said, the hope of man is but the worm. May they rest in peace.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. What else could I say? And then I said the Kaddish. It is not an easy thing for a soldier to say the mourner's prayer for the departed when the feet are naked and the body is cold. Yet I tried to say it. I said it shivering in the mud and weary almost to death. And many years later, when the war was ended, I returned to Newport and stood with Moses Seixas in the synagogue Yeshuat Israel.
You see, the synagogue still stands. It will always stand, Mordecai.
Your faith is very great, Moses.
Why not? In America, faith is possible. President Washington came here and stood where you are standing.
Huh?
He saw the Ark of the Lord and the Holy Scroll. He was pleased.
I'm glad.
He gave me a letter, Mordecai. You have fought your country's war. Now you have a right to hear why. This is Washington's letter.
Will you read it to me, Moses?
To the Hebrew congregation in Newport, Rhode Island. The citizens of the United States of America have a right to applaud themselves for having given to mankind examples of an enlarged and liberal policy, a policy worthy of imitation. All possesses alike liberty of conscience and immunities of citizenship. It is now no more that toleration is spoken of as if it was by the indulgence of one class of people that another enjoyed the exercise of their inherent natural rights. Why, happily, the government of the United States, which gives to bigotry no sanction, to persecution no assistance, requires only that they who live under its protection should demean themselves as good citizens, in giving it on all occasions their effectual support.
Read on.
May the children of the stock of Abraham, who dwell in this land, continue to merit and enjoy the good will of the other inhabitants, while every one shall sit in safety under his own vine and fig tree, and there shall be none to make him afraid. May the Father of all mercies scatter light and not darkness in our paths, and make us all in our several vocations useful here, and in his own due time and way, everlastingly happy.
They call it the old Jewish cemetery of Newport. From Narragansett Bay, the land breeze rustles in the trees, and the Rhode Island sun is clean and friendly on our graves. Yes, they sleep so still beside me. Once, long ago, they fled from Spain and Portugal, but here they found a refuge. The names on the headstones are mellowed in the rain. And if I have no stone, it does not matter, for the grass is warm and green and living. And something else. The words, too, are living. The words a man called Washington addressed to the little Jewish congregation at Newport. The congregation that sleeps beside me.
We continue our program with a brief message by the Honorable Edgar J. Nathan, Jr., Borough President of Manhattan and Acting Chairman of the Radio Committee of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Mr. Nathan is a lineal descendant of those pioneers who, 2 and 3 centuries ago, tended the light of religious liberty in Rhode Island. Mr. Nathan.
The first broadcast of the Eternal Light has just presented a beautiful and symbolic picture of the value of the teachings of religion. This picture was set in a framework of pre-revolutionary days in America. The building of the Newport Synagogue was completed in 1763. That beautiful classic structure is the oldest synagogue building now standing in America. Congregation Shereth Israel, the Spanish and Portuguese synagogue on Central Park West at 70th Street in New York City, which now has title to the Newport Synagogue, is the oldest Jewish congregation in America, having been formed in 1655. Its first house of worship was built in 1730 on Mill Street, now South William Street in New York City. With the foundation of the Newport Jewish community in 1658 and that of the New York Jewish community 3 years earlier, Judaism began making its contribution to the American way of life even in the earliest beginnings of America, in the days long before the Revolution. Jews, loyal to their religion and in accordance with their tradition, joined with other patriots in the creation of our republic. The Declaration of Independence and the Constitution were based on principles first expressed in the Bible and in the teachings of religion. On the Liberty Bell are inscribed the words of the Jewish Bible, "And ye shall proclaim liberty throughout the land to all the inhabitants thereof." The Founding Fathers were God-fearing religious men in whose breasts burned the love of freedom and equality, who believed man was made in God's image, and who knew that justice and righteousness could not prevail unless the dignity of the human being was preserved. They imparted their fortitude and beliefs to their children by keeping alive the teachings of their religion. And so America was molded from all religions and preserved for us today. It is now our task to preserve it for our children and our children's children. We cannot succeed unless we too have faith and understanding and knowledge of our religion. The eternal light kindled in Palestine long ago has been handed on from generation to generation. The Pilgrim Fathers and those who, seeking religious liberty in America, founded the Newport and the New York communities, and other God-fearing pioneers of our country, 3 centuries ago brought here the eternal light of religious faith. Let us see to it that we hand it on to our children undimmed.
In synagogues this morning, the Hallel hymns of praise were intoned. Cantor David Putterman and the choir will now sing Oriko from the service. You have just heard the first in a series of programs entitled The Eternal Light, presented by the National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations. This program is prepared under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. The script was written by Morton Wishengrad and directed by Ira Avery. The music was conducted by Henri Nasco. The traditional liturgical music was sung by Cantor David Putterman and the choir. This program came to you from New York City. This is the National Broadcasting Company.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Command the children of Israel that they bring unto thee pure oil olive, beaten for the light, to cause the lamps to burn continually in the tabernacle of the congregation. And it shall be a statute forever in your generations.
The Eternal Light. The National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations present The Eternal Light, a new series of programs offered as a public service. This program is prepared under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Chapter 2 is entitled Emmanuel, God is with us, and is written by Morton Wishengrad. Following the dramatic portion of the program, you will hear a talk by Dr. Samuel H. Goldenson.
Years ago, 38 Jewish immigrants met on New York's Lower East Side to found the Temple of God. This is the story of one of those 38, one who fled the Black Night of German persecution in the first half of the 19th century. We dedicate his story to 6 young men of Temple Emmanuel who in this first half of the 20th century have given their lives in the struggle against German fascism.
Major Albert Wertheim. Lieutenant Richard H. Seligman, United States Navy. Lieutenant Gilbert H. Seidenberg. Lieutenant Alan J. Bamberger. Flight Officer Robert J. Weiss. Lieutenant Peter H. Lehman.
To these 6, with deep reverence, we dedicate our story.
Fronting the Northern Ocean, there is a place near Nordenham where the river Weser spills into the sea. Far below, past Brache and Bremen and Hemelingen, is the little town where I was born. Not much of a town, you'll say, yet large enough for 3 millers to make their flour and 2 brewers to steep their malt, and a few hundred Jews to be enclosed in a ghetto. It was there I was born, and there my father named me Daniel after his father, and there I spent my boyhood. An uneventful boyhood. An uneventful boyhood until one day when my father came home.
Ezra, is that you?
Rachel.
Just in time for potato pudding.
I don't want any.
You're not sick, are you?
Rachel, the armies of Napoleon are in Germany.
Your potato pudding will get cold, Ezra.
Rachel, I said Napoleon.
The way you carry on, someone might think the Messiah has come.
Rachel, try to understand. The French Revolution has come to Germany. The ghetto walls are broken. The whole world is open to us. I can tear off this badge. I can walk freely on a road. I can do anything.
Get excited, Ezra. It makes you sick to your stomach.
I'm not sick to my stomach.
Then why don't you eat your potato pudding?
Oh, Rachel, your brain has turned to potato pudding. Listen, from now on, everything will be different. Different for you and for me and for our children. Different for our people. Rachel, a new world's begun. And it was true. A new world had begun. It was as though the Messiah had come to the ghetto and broken the walls and said, "See, my children, the grass is fresh and green, and there beyond grows a flower. It grows also for you." This is how it seemed to us. And this is how it must have seemed to all the Jews of Europe, liberated by the armies of the French Revolution. It was a happy time, and for my father and mother there was even greater cause for happiness. She's a fine little girl, Rachel.
Your hand under her head more, Ezra.
Am I holding her right?
Yes, that's better.
You know, I think she's not ugly.
Oh, I'm glad. It's a good sign.
Is it?
I think so. And she's born at a good time, Ezra.
Thank God she'll never see a ghetto wall.
I thought of that every moment, Ezra. And it eased the pain. Oh, Ezra, now it's good to be alive. Good to be alive and to be a Jew and to live in Germany.
Yes, it was good to be alive and to be a Jew and to live in Germany. And in the years that passed, there was nothing to mar that goodness. No wall stood beyond our window. No badge was sewed on my father's coat. Esther, my sister, grew and was gray-eyed under her Sabbath bonnet. And then one day when my father was speaking to the burgomaster, who was not an unfriendly man, suddenly the old fear rose like a specter from the ground.
Don't you enjoy my conversation, Ezra?
Excuse me, Herr Burgermeister, I didn't intend to be rude.
What has upset you? All the news is good. Napoleon is beaten. The German states are free again. The Vienna Congress is bringing back law and order. Rejoice, Ezra. The French tyrant has fallen.
Will I also rejoice in the German tyrant who takes his place?
Don't speak nonsense, Ezra. Say what you mean.
Napoleon's fall has been a signal, Herr Burgermeister. A signal for an old evil to begin again.
Ezra, your words walk on stilts. What do you mean?
Are you blind, Herr Burgermeister? They've already begun to shout anti-Jewish slogans in the public square.
Just a few hoodlums. They don't speak for me. They don't speak for any decent German.
I hope you're right. Now, if you'll excuse me, Herr Burgermeister, I want to go home and tell my wife to bolt the shutters.
All right, Ezra, we'll keep indoors.
It's best, Rachel. Daniel, you'll stay close to Esther.
Yes, Father.
Now, let's go to bed.
Father, do you know Latin?
What's that, Daniel?
At school, the older boys keep yelling, Hiro salema est paradita.
Don't trouble your father, Daniel. Go to bed.
It's all right, Rachel. So that's what the boys are yelling, Daniel?
Yes, Father.
It means Jerusalem is destroyed.
Why do they say it to me? I'm a German.
You're also a Jew, Daniel.
Is that a crime, Father?
Yes, Daniel. In Germany, it's a crime. I'll go to bed. Please don't cry, Rachel.
All right, Ezra. I won't cry anymore.
It's hardest on you, isn't it?
No, Ezra. I can bear it. I think I can bear anything for myself, and I can bear it for you and for Daniel.
But not for Esther, not for the little one.
No. Today she was walking on the footpath. A little girl in a bonnet. Just walking. They told her to walk in the gutter.
That's law and order, Rachel. They were civic-minded. Yes, henceforth, Jews may not walk on the footpath. Even very small Jews.
But how does she attend them, Ezra? She's still a baby.
I don't know, Rachel. I don't know anything anymore.
Bend thy head a moment, Ezra, till the storm is past.
No bending, Rachel. No bending, no bowing, no cringing.
Where are you going?
The only place I can go. A man can't stand alone, Rachel, not in this world. I'm going to take my place with the others. Rachel, I'm going to the synagogue.
I went with my father. They would not let us meet in the old synagogue. It was no longer permitted that Jews might pray above street level. So we came together in a cellar, with one cell-like window staring at the street above us. And the rabbi looked silently at the window and then turned to my father.
I think I don't mind the cellar, Ezra.
But I mind, Rabbi.
No, you shouldn't. We have gone down to worship in order to fulfill the injunction of the psalmist. Out of the depths have we cried unto the Lord, and he answered us. Will he not answer us again, Ezra?
I don't know, Rabbi. I think perhaps I don't care. There's answer enough for me in the strength of my own hand.
No, Ezra. There is no answer in any man's hands. They are not strong enough to tear down the wall that must be broken. And your fists cannot do it.
I don't believe it. I don't believe you. You preach peace and there is no peace. You preach rest and there is no rest. There is no gladness, no honor, no joy in life. It's all illusion.
Ezra, if a man is at peace with God, then he is at peace with himself, and he has rest and honor and joy in life.
Even in the ghetto?
Even in Gehenna. Believe that, Ezra, and do justly and be steadfast, and you will live, Ezra, because that is how Judaism has always lived.
There's nothing I can do for you, Ezra.
You misunderstand. I want nothing for myself, Herr Burgermeister. I ask for all of us.
If I can do nothing for you, I can do even less for them.
That isn't true, Herr Burgermeister. Perhaps you can't take the badge from my sleeve, but there are other humiliations.
You don't know what you're asking.
I'm asking you to save us from further degradation.
My hands are tied, Ezra.
I see.
I'm sorry, Ezra.
All right.
Listen, my friend, don't you think I understand? But I'm a public servant. I can't defend you.
I don't ask anyone to defend us.
What then?
I ask for someone, anyone, you or the priest or the miller or any villager, anyone, any decent, civilized German. I ask him to say, people, what you do against the Jew is wrong. What you do against the Jew is monstrous and unchristian. That's all I ask.
It wouldn't help, Ezra.
It would. It would help very much to have faith again. Even faith in you, Herr Burgermeister.
Suppose I told you that I'm terribly sorry for you, yes, and for your people.
Your actions speak so loud I can't hear what you say.
That's unfair, Ezra. You know I'm a tolerant man. You know I tolerate your religion.
What do you mean you tolerate? Who gives you the right to tolerate or not to tolerate?
I don't like your tone, Ezra.
I'm sorry. But I don't like to be condescended to. I didn't come for tolerance. I came as a German citizen, and I asked for ordinary human rights.
There's no point in discussing this anymore. You'll lose your temper, I'll lose my temper. And I'm a reasonable man. So the answer is, Ezra, pray to God that things stay as they are. For if they change, it will only be for the worse.
Ezra, don't be distressed. We'll come out of this. Somehow we always do.
You know something, Rachel?
You're not even listening.
I can't abide it anymore.
What? What can't you abide?
Germany, it seems corrupt to the very marrow of the bone.
It's where you were born, Ezra.
It's not where I'll die, Rachel.
Oh, Ezra, no.
Rachel, please don't cry.
You're going to America, aren't you?
There's no alternative.
No. No, there's no alternative. You're going alone, aren't you?
There's money enough for only one passage. You know that.
Oh, it's too much, Ezra, more than I can bear.
Don't cry, Rachel. If you want me to, I'll stay. Please don't cry.
That's why I'm crying. Because you mustn't stay. Because our hope is for you to go. And for you to send for us. That's all the hope we have left.
God bless you, Rachel. The rabbi has promised to look after you. I'll send for you soon.
Oh, Ezra.
Believe me, Rachel, it will be soon.
I think there was something in the American air he loved at once. Something with space and cleanliness in it. And he wrote us letters filled with pride in the new land. And he sent for us with pride. Now that we're here, I cannot tell you how good it is. Nor can I tell you how good it has been these 20 full years in a still growing union. My father and mother are old now, but if I grow old like them, I'll bless the Lord.
Daniel, what's in the paper about Texas?
Oh, they say she'll join the union.
May I live to see it. And who's going to be elected mayor? Mr. Selden or that loco foco, what's his name?
Well, the Herald's for Selden, Father.
A good paper, Daniel. A very good paper.
Yeah, I'll tell you something that isn't in the paper.
Mm-hmm.
We've organized a synagogue.
Yes?
Taking place on Grand and Clinton, right over a store.
You got a rabbi?
Mm-hmm. We're going to pay him $4 a week. Dr. Leo Metzbacher, he's a fine man.
Very pleased, Daniel.
I knew you'd be. You like the name we've chosen also.
Yes?
Emmanuel.
Emmanuel. God is with us. I like it very much, Daniel.
I hoped you would.
Tell me about this rabbi. Will he preach this Sabbath?
Well, yes, of course.
You think he's found a text for his sermon?
I couldn't say, Father.
Well, then perhaps, Daniel, he won't mind if I suggest a text for America and Emmanuel. Go to him, Daniel, and wish him well. And tell him from me that this land is like an ensign set on a high mountain.
I'll tell him, Father.
And let him look in Isaiah in the 27th chapter.
Yes, Father.
I should like him to read that, Daniel. And they shall come that were lost in the land of Assyria, and they that were dispersed in the land of Egypt, and they shall worship the Lord.
We continue our program with a brief message by Dr. Samuel H. Goldenson, one of the nation's distinguished religious leaders and rabbi of the Temple Emmanuel of New York City. Dr. Goldenson.
It is now nearly 100 years since the little band of Jews hailing from Germany gathered together in their first and very humble place of worship in this city. The establishment of their congregation was to them, as it has been to the children of Israel throughout the ages, the most significant and compelling enterprise. They knew that without the synagogue, as the bearer of the religious traditions of their fathers, they could not realize the best in them and could not play their historic role in the spiritual life of mankind. It is because these men understood the high function of the synagogue in the life of Israel, and also because they were so deeply grateful to find themselves in a land so favorable to their hopes and yearnings, that they named their congregation Emmanuel, God is with us. The name is both a prayer and a resolution. It is a thankful acknowledgement of God's grace and goodness in making it possible for them to live in a land where they could enjoy freedom of thought, freedom of speech, and freedom of worship. At the same time, the name of the congregation voiced their fervid determination to carry the torch of their faith on this blessed land as their forefathers had done in every land and in all ages throughout their long history. To what extent the early hopes and dreams of the fathers of Temple Emmanuel were realized, no one knows. Spiritual endeavors can never be actually gauged and measured. Religion deals with the purposes that cannot be fully accomplished and with ideals that can never be altogether achieved. Yet it is gratifying to be able to record that from the very beginning, the men and women of this congregation have been leaders in the upbuilding of every Jewish benevolent, educational, and social service institution in this community. Our hospitals, orphan asylums, homes for the aged, relief agencies, cultural centers, and religious schools were all of them, almost without exception, sponsored, supported, and maintained in great part by the men and women of Congregation Emmanuel. Nor did our people give themselves wholly and exclusively to Jewish social and cultural endeavors. Among our members will be found numberless persons who have given of their thought, energy, and substance to the furtherance of every high cause in the life of the community and the nation. These patriotic services and humane contributions to the well-being of our fellow Jews and of our neighbors are not a chance and accidental expression of the generous instincts of the members of Temple Emmanuel. They are rather the direct outgrowth and traditional exemplification of the teachings of the synagogue. Judaism has always insisted that doctrine and deed must go together. It is of the very essence of the religion of Israel that the thought of God and the contemplation of the moral law should issue in right conduct and beneficent behavior. Indeed, the third commandment enjoins that no one shall take the name of the Lord in vain, that is, in such a way as not to make it count for good amid the actualities of life. It is with joy and thankfulness, therefore, that we approach the 100th anniversary of Temple Emmanuel, for we hope and believe that its members will, in the future, give themselves to all manner of good works as they have done in the past. Thus will they maintain the congregation as an exemplar of the faith of Israel and a force for good in our midst.
Thank you, Dr. Goldenson. Vishamru, a selection from the musical literary of Temple Emmanuel, will now be sung by Cantor David Putterman and the choir.
Vishamru, B'nai Yisrael, et Hashabon, Lafos, et Hashabon, Ledorosom, Oh, Lord. Israel, all say
You have just heard the second in a series of programs entitled The Eternal Light, presented by the National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations. This program was prepared under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. The script was written by Morton Wishengrad and directed by Ira Avery. The music was conducted by Henri Masco. The traditional liturgical music was sung by Cantor David Putterman and the choir. The talk was delivered by Dr. Samuel H. Goldenson. Copies of today's script may be secured without cost by writing to the Jewish Theological Seminary of America, 3080 Broadway, New York 27, New York. This program came to you from New York City. This is the National Broadcasting Company.
Presenting Raymond Massey in Jacob and the Indians by Stephen Vincent Benet.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Command the children of Israel that they bring unto thee pure oil olive, beaten for the light, to cause the lamps to burn continually in the tabernacle of the congregation. And it shall be a statute forever in your generations.
The Eternal Light. The National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations present The Eternal Light, a new series of programs offered as a public service. This program is prepared under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary. Chapter 3 is a radio adaptation by Morton Wishengrad of Stephen Vincent Benet's story, Jacob and the Indians, starring Raymond Massey as narrator. Following the dramatic portion of the program, you will hear a talk by Rabbi D.A. Jeshurun Cardozo.
In the days of the American colonies, may God profit all who lived then, Jacob Stein, my grandfather's grandfather, came to Philadelphia from Rettelsheim in Germany. An orphan in a sailing ship, but not a common man. No, he had learning. He could have been a scholar among scholars. Then you may ask, why did he come? Well, there was a plague and a new duke. Anyway, they had left the teeth in his mouth. We are children of the dispersion. We know a black day when it comes. So he landed in Philadelphia, a young man with fine dreams and learning.
Jacob, what can you do?
I'm a scholar. I study the law.
Your learning's all very fine, Jacob, but it does not fill the mouth.
I see that.
I have it. We'll put a pack on your shoulders, and you'll go from door to door with it.
Oh, no.
Come, Jacob, selling is no disgrace.
True, it was no disgrace, but it was not expounding the law. At first, Jacob would sit in his room at night with the one candle and read the preacher Kohelet till the bitterness rose in his mouth. Myself, I am not sure Kohelet was a great preacher, but if he had had a good wife, he would have been a more cheerful man. But that is neither here nor there. One day, Jacob saw his first Indian, a tame Indian, who bought a ribbon from him. After that, Jacob felt better. He worked hard, and Simon Ettelson sold him trinkets for his pack. Now, Simon Ettelson was a pious man and well thought of in the congregation Mikveh Israel. And it happened one day that Jacob found him arguing with a friend over a point of the law.
I say you're wrong.
I say you're wrong.
How do you know?
It says so in the Talmud.
Show me where.
The Talmud is where.
That's what you say. Where? The place? In which chapter? On which page?
Never mind that. It's written that if a righteous man persecutes a wicked man, God stands with a righteous man.
That's nonsense. If a righteous man persecutes a wicked man, he stops being righteous, and God stands with neither.
You're wrong.
You're wrong.
Excuse me. You're both wrong.
I don't... Huh? Who are you?
I was listening. It is written that if a righteous man persecutes a righteous man, God stands with him who is persecuted. If a wicked man persecutes a righteous man, God stands with a righteous
That's
man.
not our point.
I'm coming to it. If a righteous man persecutes a wicked man, God stands also with the persecuted. By the very act of being persecuted, a man becomes the ward of God. For is it not written in the book of Ecclesiastes, God seeks out the persecuted?
They stared at him, and he spoke and told them where they erred. For half an hour he spoke, with his pack still upon his shoulders, and never has a text been expounded with more complexity, not even by the great Reb Samuel. Simon Ettelson listened to Jacob with respect, then with admiration, till at the end he threw up his hands.
You are a young David and a candle of learning.
I didn't mean to speak so long.
Nonsense. Come to my house. Oh. Don't say no. We'll have stuffed fish and raisin wine. For a scholar, even stuffed fish is not good enough.
For the first time since he had come to Philadelphia, Jacob ate well. Also, he laid eyes on Miriam Ettelson. And she was Simon's youngest daughter and a rose of Zion. After that, Jacob came many times to Simon Ettelson's house. But Maya Kappelheist came also.
Miriam, where are you? Hey, look, Miriam, look at the present I brought you.
I speak no ill of any man, but this Maya Kappelheist. Well, who lies down on the straw where the dog gets up with fleas? A big, red-faced fellow with red hair and a mouth for eating and telling stories about the Indians. Yes, he traded with the Indians. And it could not be denied that he was thriving.
Miriam, let's tell a little scholar, huh?
Tell me what, Maya?
The law is the law and the prophets are the prophets. But prime beaver is also prime beaver. Hey, Miriam?
Maya Kappelheist laughed. It took the pleasure from Jacob's learning and the joy of the maiden from his heart. Then he would sit silent and burning while Maya told a great tale of Indians, and Miriam's eyes shone at Maya's words. Everywhere he went, it seemed he heard nothing but Maya Kappelheist and his trading with the Indians. So he went to Simon Ettelson in his shop.
Mr. Ettelson, I'm weary of this trading in pins and needles.
Is that so, Jacob? What would you have now?
I would have much more.
Yes?
Yes, I would have a wife and a home.
Look, you're a good boy. Now, if it's a question of marriage...
Yes, Mr. Ettelson?
Sure, Levy, the baker, has a daughter.
Oh.
It's true, she squints a little, but her heart is a heart of gold.
It's Not of Asher Levy's daughter, I'm thinking.
I see what is in your heart, Jacob. You're a fine scholar. In the old country, well, I'm not saying...
If I were like Meyer Kappelhurst, it would make a difference, wouldn't it?
Well, Meyer trades with the Indians. He's a little rough, it's true, but he'll die a rich man.
All right, Mr. Ethelstone. I'll also trade with the Indians.
You trade with the Indians? You're a scholar. Leave that to Meyer Kappelhurst.
And Miriam, shall I also leave her to Meyer Kappelhurst?
Well, it's not settled, of course, but...
I'll go forth against him as David went against Goliath. I'll go forth into the wilderness. Let God judge the better man.
Jacob Stein, my grandfather's grandfather, flung his pack on the floor and ran into the street. He had meant to buy his trading goods from Simon Ethelstone, and now he stood like a man bereft of hope. And then he remembered Raphael Sanchez. An arrogant old man he was, with fierce black eyes and a beard that was whiter than snow, and one who sat in the congregation Mikveh Israel like an eagle.
What's for sale today, peddler?
Man by Talmud, Chacham. A scholar is for sale.
Now I am rebuked. You have the tongue. Enter, my guest.
And that's all there is to it, Mr. Sanchez.
So, scholar, you cross an ocean that you might live and not die. And all you see is a girl's face.
But didn't Jacob serve 7 years for Rachel?
Twice 7, scholar. Let me tell you why I came to this country.
Wasn't it for the trading?
No, for the promise. The promise of William Penn that this land should be an habitation and a refuge. Are you spat upon in the street here, scholar of the law?
No.
It is not so in all countries.
No, it is not.
The spittle wipes off the cloth. But one does not forget. One does not forget the persecutor or the persecuted.
I don't understand, Mr. Sanchez.
That's all right, scholar. In the congregation Mikveh Israel, they think I'm mad.
Tell me what you want.
Look at the map. There is New France. See it?
Yes.
And down the great river come the French traders with their Indians.
Well?
Are you blind? I don't trust the King of France. The king before him drove out the Huguenots. Who knows what this one will do?
I still
don't you see, if they hold the great river against us, we shall never go westward. We are part of it. This is the new era where our people make a new beginning. There's something beginning to live, and it is faceless and nameless yet. But it is our lot to be a part of it. Remember that in the wilderness, my young scholar of the law.
Then you'll lend me supplies?
Yes. And you will make maps of the new land.
I will, Mr. Sanchez.
Scholar, you think you're going there for a girl's face, but you'll find what you don't expect to find. One pays for the land of Canaan. One pays in sweat and blood.
Perhaps they were right in the congregation Mikveh Israel for thinking Raphael Sanchez a little mad. It seemed to Jacob that the old man's words were a veil, but chiefly he thought of the rosy cheeks of Miriam Ethelstone. And then he ceased to think of her, but only of the Scotsman, McCampbell, who took him on his first trading journey.
I've been thinking, Jacob.
So have I, McCampbell.
I've been thinking of some of the things you told me. Did you ever hear of a rabbi called John Calvin?
No, I don't think so.
Too bad. It's a shame, Jacob. A scholar with honey in his mouth like you, destined for eternal damnation. Well, come on, move your hooves, lassie.
McCampbell and Jacob. McCampbell quoted Calvin and Jacob quoted the Talmud. And together they rode through the wilderness. And Jacob began to learn many things that even a scholar of the law may not learn. How to move silently through the woods the girthing of a pack saddle, and the making of fires. Also the look of dawn in the forest, and the look of evening. And it seemed to Jacob as they sank deeper and deeper into the forest that the Germany he had left behind was very small. It seemed to him that he had not known there was so much width to the world.
Drink deep, Jacob.
It's good.
Aye. That girl would not recognize you now, Jacob.
Yes, my beard is wild.
That's no scholar's beard. Your hands are brown. Good hands for setting a trap or firing a gun.
We can turn back, McCampbell. Our packs are full.
No. We'll go further, Jacob. Further.
Then there came a light that was strange into the Scotsman's eyes. They went to the banks of the great river, brown like the River Jordan, and there was no end to the country beyond it. It stretched to the limits of the sky, and Jacob saw it with his eyes, and he was almost afraid. It was there that the strong man, McCampbell, fell sick.
Face my grave to the west, Jacob. And then go back and say you've seen the promised land. Not for our seed only, but for the nations to come.
He buried him on a bluff overlooking the river, and Jacob was alone in the wilderness. Then in a season of bitter cold, with his last horse dead, he was taken by the Shawnees. Jacob took his phylacteries and bound them on his brow and on his arm for the death hour. They tied him to the stake and piled the wood around him. And Jacob prayed for Zion in the wilderness while they lighted the fire.
Thou who art the father of the fatherless and judge of the widow, into thy hand I commend my spirit. Thou hast redeemed me, O Lord God of truth. Amen and amen.
They lit the fire under my grandfather's grandfather, and the smoke took him, and he coughed. His throat was hot, and he called out,
Water! Give me to drink!
All men know the signs of thirst, and an Indian brought him a bowl that was filled. Jacob put it to his lips eagerly, but the stuff in the bowl was scorching hot and burned his mouth. Jacob was angry, and he flung the bowl straight into the face of the man who had brought it, scalding him. There was a murmur from the Shawnees, and Jacob felt himself unbound, and he knew that he lived. It was flinging the bowl at the man while yet he stood at the stake that saved him. For there is an etiquette about such matters. One does not burn a madman among the Indians, and a sane man, they explained to him later, would not fling a bowl or chant a death song in an unknown tongue or put on phylacteries. And so Jacob passed the winter in the lodges of the Shawnees, and he began to speak their tongue.
Indian, what month is this?
It is the month of the berry moon.
How does that help me, Indian? Is the month Tishrei or even Nisan or what?
You speak like a madman. I said it is the berry moon month.
Thank you, Indian. A scholar of the law, and I do not even know the days of the festivals.
Perhaps it was the month of the berry moon, or perhaps it was the month of the bee moon, when Jacob escaped. And now he was no longer a scholar, but a hunter. And when he thought of Zion, it was not as a white city set up on a hill, but as a great and open landscape ready for nations. I shall not tell all, for who knows all? I shall not tell of the trading post he found deserted, and the 140 French louis in the dead man's money belt, or the half-grown boy McGilvery whom he found on the fringes of settlement, or how he traded again with the Shawnees and got much beaver. Only this remains to be told. Not 30 miles from Lancaster, Jacob came upon a man with red hair on the back of his hands.
Meyer Kappelhuis. Oh. What do you want? It's the little scholar.
I've been long away, Meyer. What's the news?
Yeah.
Have a drink first.
No. I suppose you have news of Simon Ethelstone and his family.
Yeah, sure. The old man has promised his daughter to a cousin of the Satius. A greenie just come over.
I see.
Oh. Yeah, we're well out of it, Scholar. To tell you the truth, she always was a little too skinny for my taste.
She was a rose of Sharon, Maya Kappelheist, and a lily of the valley.
Yet, strange to say, my grandfather's grandfather did not feel the pangs he should have felt. He merely sat on his horse and regarded the 3 Indians who rode with Maya Kappelheist, and he did not like them. And he also did not like the way Maya fixed his eyes greedily on the packs of beaver. There were 18 packs of beaver skin, and perhaps for this, or perhaps because of Miriam, Jacob refused to ride on with Maya and turned down a fork of the road instead. When he reached Lancaster, he had reason to be grateful for this.
Looks that way. Yep, that's a white man's scalp.
Dry and nice and pretty on that willow hook. Oh, you seem interested, stranger.
The hair is red.
Sure enough. We got the Indians who took the scalp.
Know who it might be, stranger?
Yes.
That's so? Well, you're welcome to it.
No, thank you.
Oh, shucks, take it, stranger. Be a sort of memento to his folks.
All right. I'll take it back with me to Philadelphia.
What is your business with me, frontiersman?
The price of blood for a country, Raphael Sanchez.
It's you. Touch the scroll on the doorpost and enter, my son. What have you seen, Jacob?
Raphael Sanchez, I've seen the land of Canaan flowing with milk and honey. I've brought back grapes from Eshcol and other things that are terrible to tell. Terrible to tell.
Yes? What else? Yes? What else? Yes? What else? Yes? What else? Yes? What else, Jacob?
My friend McCampbell lies buried near the banks of a river, and his face is turned to the west. Map I made for you. Beyond the river, there's country, Raphael Sanchez. Country that stretches to the end of the world.
Did I not say, my son, that there was more than a girl's face to be found in the wilderness?
She's to be married. But what's a girl's face beside this thing in my pocket? This thing with red hair growing from it.
Put it down, Jacob.
Maya Kappelheist. And he was a strong man. And I'm not strong, but a scholar. But I've seen what I've seen, and we must say Kaddish for him.
Yes. It will be done. I'll see to it.
You don't understand, Raphael Sanchez. I've eaten deer's meat in the wilderness and forgotten the month of the year. I've been a servant to the heathen. And held the scalp of my enemy in my hand. I'll never be the same man.
You'll be the same, and perhaps no worse a scholar in this new country.
It must be a country for all. For my friend McCampbell died also, and he was a Gentile.
Let us hope, Jacob. Let us hope.
Raphael Sanchez touched Jacob upon the shoulder. Then Jacob lifted his head, and he saw that the light had declined and the evening was upon them. And even as he looked, Raphael Sanchez's granddaughter came in to light the candles for Sabbath. And Jacob looked at her, and she was a dove, with a dove's eyes.
We continue with a brief message from one of the outstanding religious leaders of Philadelphia, Rabbi D.A. Jeshurun Cardozo of the Congregation Mikveh Israel. Rabbi Cardozo.
Next Tuesday, October 24th, we will celebrate the 300th anniversary of the birth of William Penn. It is therefore appropriate to remember that many of the early settlers in this country were attracted to Pennsylvania by Penn's promise referred to in our story that this land should be an habitation and a refuge. The oppressed and the persecuted came from all parts of the world to Pennsylvania especially because it had the most democratic laws of all the colonies, but above all because here there was absolute religious freedom. Even before Penn, Jews had arrived. Almost 3 centuries ago, in 1656, Jews were trading with the Indians along the Delaware River. Jewish settlers participated with Penn in the founding and building. What they valued so greatly was the fact that they were able to worship the God of Israel according to their own traditions. At an early date, they organized divine services in Philadelphia in the Hebrew tongue and prayed for the welfare of this country. Their numbers grew steadily. More than 2 centuries ago, in 1740, about the time Independence Hall was being completed, they founded the first congregation in the city, called most significantly Mikveh Israel, the Hope of Israel. This congregation has ever since taken a leading part both in the religious life and in the cultural and educational activities of American Jewry, and its members have given distinctive services to America. Deeply grateful for the opportunities they enjoyed here by right and not by sufferance, the Jews became staunch supporters of the government of the United States. It was because their souls were at peace, and because they were able to satisfy the dictates of their conscience, that they could participate in a happy and constructive manner in the upbuilding of America. They gave most liberally of their worldly possessions for the financing of the Revolutionary War. We need but mention Chaim Solomon, who was a trustee of Mikveh Israel. They also contributed gladly and generously from the riches of their mind, their knowledge, and their experience. Nay, they gave more. They gave their very blood, their lives. Let me give you a few examples of the many members of Mikveh Israel who have served America. Isaac de Miranda was appointed a deputy judge as early as 1727. Benjamin Cohen was Attorney General in 1755. The Reverend Gershom Mendesatius, for some time Rabbi of Mikveh Israel, was for more than 25 years a trustee of Columbia College, New York, now Columbia University. He represented the Jews at the inauguration of George Washington. Simon Gratz, member of a well-known Philadelphia family, was a founder of the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts. Jacob Gratz was a member of the Pennsylvania legislature. Among those who distinguished themselves in military careers, we can name Colonel David Frank, who was sent abroad by Washington to negotiate with foreign countries. Major Benjamin Nonis, the president of Mikveh Israel, rendered conspicuous services on the staff of Lafayette and Washington. And much later, Commodore Uriah Phillips Levy was the sponsor of the law which abolished corporal punishment in the Navy. In 1782, Mikveh Israel needed a new synagogue due to the increased number of its members. A fine spirit of cooperation found Jew and Gentile alike contributing. Benjamin Franklin, David Rittenhouse, and many others sent liberal gifts. This is the way they worked with and for one another in these early days, and from then ever since. The eternal light of freedom and liberty has been burning brightly in America. May it long continue to give to the broken-hearted and suffering new strength, new opportunity, new hope. May it continue to be the hope of Israel.
Thank you, Rabbi Cardozo. Mizmor le-David, Psalm 23 from the musical liturgy of the Sephardic Synagogue, such as Congregation Mikveh Israel, will now be sung by Cantor David Futterman and the choir.
Mizmor le-David, ad Hashem rongi, lo Yeshobed, Yanecheni, Be'eman leitedet, Lemanatan Shema. Lefanai shulechan neged tzarerai dishanta b'shemen roefi hasi revaya.
Today's script presented Raymond Massey as narrator and Stephen Vincent Benet's Jacob and the Indians, adapted for radio by Morton Wishengrad. This was the third in a series of programs entitled The Eternal Light, presented by the National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations. This program was prepared under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. The program was directed by Ira Avery. The music was conducted by Henri Nosco. The traditional liturgical music was sung by Cantor David Putterman in the choir. The speaker was Rabbi D.A. Jeshurun Cordoza. Copies of the script may be obtained without cost by writing to the Jewish Theological Seminary of America, 3080 Broadway, New York, 27, New York. This program came to you from New York. This is the National Broadcasting Company.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Command the children of Israel that they bring unto thee pure oil olive, beaten for the light, to cause the lamps to burn continually in the tabernacle of the congregation. And it shall be a statute forever in your generation.
The eternal light.
The National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations bring you Chapter 4 of The Eternal Light. This public service program is prepared under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Our story today, written by Morton Wishengrad, is entitled The Tabernacle of Duke's Place and features Len Sterling. Following the dramatic portion of the program, you will hear a talk by Dr. Robert Gordis.
Terrible and more beautiful. The tracer bullets stitch a quick seam of flame up into the sky, and the incendiaries and the bombs spill down like beads from a broken stream. That's how it was the nights of May 10th and May 11th, 1941, when the Luftwaffe was over London. Uncle Nathan died the first night. There was a neat hole through the top of his helmet. He'd been on air raid duty over at Duke's Place. Just outside the great synagogue.
Sooner or later, a man must die. And there are worse ways of dying than from a shell fragment in the skull. Please understand me. I'm not a hero. But there are worse things than dying. Like seeing the roof of the great synagogue go up in flames, and seeing a bolt of fire fall on the ark that holds the Holy Scrolls. Are the Holy Scrolls still there? I don't know. I know that the synagogue stands naked to the wind, the roof gutted, the walls charred, the pews where I sat and my father sat, and his father before him. Nothing but a gray feather of ash. I'm sorry for that. That pew had a history. 100 years ago, Sir David Salomon sat in that pew. Please don't misunderstand me. It's not important that Sir David was once Lord Mayor of London, or that he was the brother-in-law of Moses Montefiore. It's more important that he was an upright man, and that in the days of Queen Victoria, may she rest in peace, Sir David Salomon was aroused by something.
I'm not going to wait anymore, Amos.
No?
No, I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to pussyfoot. I'm not going to hold my hat in my hand and ask for favors.
Save your speeches for your constituency.
That's exactly what I'm going to do.
I see. And you're going to stand for Parliament again.
Yes, that's what I mean.
It isn't wise, Sir David.
And why not?
Because it isn't wise.
That's no answer.
You know the answer. You're a Jew. No Jew has ever sat in Parliament.
Amos, a few years ago, no Catholic sat in Parliament.
That's different, Sir David. You'll be attacked because you're a Jew.
The Catholics were attacked because they were Catholics. The same civil disabilities applied to them. They fought against it. And that's what we have to do.
Perhaps. You stood for Parliament twice already.
3 times.
So much worse. You lost each time.
Amos, this time I won't lose.
All right, suppose you win.
Well?
They won't seat you.
Exactly. But I'm going to oblige them to say why they won't seat me.
I've told you why.
Let them tell me.
They'll tell you you're a Jew.
I'm running for office as an Englishman.
Sir David, you're going to get into trouble.
Thank you, Amos. It seems to me that's a risk I have to take.
Sir David! Henry, stop the carriage.
Yes, milady.
Sir David!
I thought I recognized your carriage, Lady Russell.
Can I drive you somewhere?
It's very kind of you to ask, but it's the Sabbath, you know.
Oh, yes, of course. You don't ride on Saturdays.
No, milady.
Will you talk a little politics?
Well, it's not...
I hear you're going to stand for Greenwich.
That's true.
Don't. It's a Tory stronghold. No Liberal has a chance.
I'm already committed, Lady Russell.
Too bad. Sure I can't take you anywhere?
Thank you, Lady Russell. I'm going to the synagogue on Duke's Place. I'll walk.
David! David, I want to see you.
Yes, Rabbi.
Come in here where we can be alone.
Well, are you going to scold me too, Rabbi?
Why do you want to do this foolish thing, David?
Is it foolish to want to serve your country?
The question is, do you want to serve your country or yourself?
I don't know what that means, Rabbi.
We read a Sabbath chapter from Pirkei Avot today. I'll repeat it for you. Seek not greatness for thyself, and court not honor. Let thy works exceed thy learning, and crave not after the table of kings. For thy table is greater than theirs, and thy employer is faithful to pay thee the reward of thy work.
Rabbi, I don't want greatness. I don't crave the table of kings.
Then what are you after?
Not long ago, a Jew could not vote. I resented that.
So did I as an Englishman. But now we can vote, so why complain?
We still cannot sit in Parliament.
Does it rankle so much?
Yes, very much, Rabbi. I'm quite willing to be barred from Parliament because I'm incompetent. But I won't be barred because the Tories don't admit Catholics, Quakers, separatists, and Jews.
The others are now admitted, David. Our turn will come in time.
In time is too long. Now is the time. The time is always now, Rabbi.
In that you are right, David.
That's the only reason why I want to run. To wipe out the humiliation. This humiliation not only to us, but to England.
I believe you and I bless you, David. But remember something.
Yes, Rabbi.
You are an Englishman, but you are also a Jew. Whatever you do, whatever you say, must be done and said for the sake of righteousness. You must be an example, David.
You've told us a lot, Mr. Candidate, but how will you vote on the poor relief bill?
That's right, David Solomon. How will you vote?
I think I will vote.
He's a tough like the rest. You can see it in his blooming face.
Oh, shut up, Wilkins. You're not the speaker.
How do you stand, Sir David?
I'm for the bill.
Good.
However, a poor relief bill is essentially charity.
There, you see, he's against...
Oh, shut up, Wilkins.
You see, charity is part of my religion. Every Jew must give part of what he earns to charity.
Yeah, well, I like it. I know.
But we don't misunderstand it. We know that charity is an ennobling thing. An ennobling thing to the man who gives charity. But sometimes it embitters the life of the man who receives it.
Sure, sir, but I say, if I'm going to be embittered, I want to be embittered on a full belly.
I don't disagree with you at all, Mr. Wilkins. That's why, if the people of Greenwich send me to Parliament, I'll vote for the poor relief bill.
Good. Let's leave it at that.
I'm sorry, I can't leave it at that.
Why not?
You see, my religion also teaches me that it is more meritorious to anticipate charity than to give charity. A great man by the name of Maimonides taught us that.
Perhaps he's the man we ought to elect instead of you.
I'm afraid, gentlemen, that wouldn't do. He's not exactly in a position right now to represent you. However, you've all been very kind. But perhaps you'll allow me to add that the best charity is to prevent poverty. I hope you agree with that. If you don't, I advise you to vote for my opponent.
In the year 1851, during the reign of Queen Victoria, this is how David Salomons campaigned for Parliament. The people of Greenwich were Christians, and David Salomons was a Jew. And for them, there was much cause for misgiving in the fact. It happened once at a meeting that a man rose in the audience and put to David Salomons the question that was on many lips.
Mr. Salomon, you're a Jew. How can we elect you?
I ask you to elect me as an Englishman, not as a Jew.
You won't stop being a Jew.
Well, should I? I always thought that in England a man's religion was his own affair.
Well, maybe. But if you represent us in Parliament, then your religion also becomes our affair.
I think that's wrong, sir. Your affair is how I vote, not how I pray to God. But suppose what you say is true. Why should my religion bar me from Parliament?
That's what we want you to tell us.
Well, I think in that case I should tell you what the Hebrew law is.
Yeah, perhaps you should, sir.
Once, many years ago, in the days of the Caesars, a smiling Roman commanded the famous Rabbi Hillel to stand on one leg and expound the entire law.
Well?
Hillel also smiled, and he answered, "Do not unto others what you would not have others do to thee. That is the entire law. Everything else is commentary." Does that answer your question, sir?
Is that what you believe?
With all my heart.
All right, sir, I'm satisfied.
Greenwich was a Tory stronghold, and David Salomons was a Liberal. But in the year 1851, the people of Greenwich elected David Salomons to Parliament. And now there was a turning of eyes from Ireland and Scotland and Wales and the villages of England toward the Speaker's table in the great House of Commons.
Your name, sir?
David Solomons, Mr. Speaker.
Are you prepared to take the oath?
I am, sir.
You, David Solomons, truly, sincerely acknowledge, profess, testify, and declare in your conscience before God and the world that our sovereign Queen Victoria is rightful Queen of this realm and all other dominions and countries thereunto belonging?
I do, Mr. Speaker.
Without any equivocation?
Without any equivocation.
Or mental evasion or secret preservation whatsoever?
With none of these, Mr. Speaker.
And do you make this acknowledgement, abjuration, renunciation, and promise heartily, willingly, and truly?
Yes.
Upon the true faith of a Christian?
Upon the true faith of a Jew, Mr. Speaker.
You are out of order, sir. The prescribed form of the oath requires you to swear on the true faith of a Christian.
Do you ask me to renounce my religion, Mr. Speaker?
I ask you to take the oath as it is written.
I do so, Mr. Speaker. I have been legally elected, and I have satisfied every requirement of this Parliament, but I will not renounce my religion.
I repeat, Mr. Solomons, you are out of order.
This form of oath is deliberately framed to exclude a section of the population from the rights of Englishmen.
You are contumacious, sir.
No, Mr. Speaker. Truthful.
Mr. Solomons, it is my direction that you withdraw from the House. I ask the members of this House to come to order.
David Solomon stood before the Speaker's table in the great House of Commons. Then slowly he turned. A hush fell upon the assembly as the elected member for Greenwich walked slowly from the rostrum. The sergeant-at-arms held the famous doors open. And then David Solomon stopped. He stopped, then quietly approached a vacant seat among the Liberal benches, and he sat down.
Speak up! Speak up!
I recognize Sir Robert Inglis.
I rise to protest, sir. The Speaker of the House has ordered this gentleman to withdraw.
Thank you, Sir Robert. Do you withdraw, Mr. Solomons?
No, Mr. Speaker.
You are presumptuous, Mr. Solomon.
I regret it, sir. I appeal for the indulgence of the House. I ask your leave to defend my position.
You may not do that, Mr. Solomon. You are not a legal member of this body.
Let him speak. Gentlemen, I ask you again to come to order. You have the indulgence of this House, Mr. Solomons. You may proceed.
I wish to state, Mr. Speaker, members of Parliament, that I am to be excluded from Commons not because I am guilty of civil offense or because I am convicted of lack of competence, but because of my devotion to the faith in which I was raised.
Are you done, Mr. Solomon?
Not yet, sir. This House may wish to renounce me, but surely it does not wish to renounce Holy Scripture. Ye shall have one statute, both for the stranger and for him that is born in the land. And remember that I am not a stranger. This is my land, where my father was born and his father before him.
Argue to the point, sir. The statute here is that you are not a legal member of Commons. You have not taken the oath.
I have taken the oath and sworn to it on my faith. I do not impugn your motives, Sir Robert. But what you ask me to do is repugnant to humanity and against every principle of charity and civilization.
How dare you impute to me such...
Wait, Sir Robert.
No, I won't.
I appeal to the Speaker for permission to conclude my remarks.
You may proceed.
Gentlemen, I do not wish to try your patience.
Well, then be still.
Thank you. I say this. If you disqualify me on religious grounds, then you are imposing a penalty for the holding of opinion. You are stigmatizing persons for difference of faith. As an Englishman, I tell you this is un-English. And I ask this assembly to amend the form of the oath and to act in the spirit of the Magna Carta. Thank you, gentlemen. I withdraw now.
The seat that rightfully belonged to David Solomons remained vacant. And because David Solomons had taken that seat briefly and spoken in the House of Commons without having previously taken the full oath, Sir Robert protested.
I rise on a point of law.
What is your point, Sir Robert?
The member for Greenwich has violated an act of Parliament.
Yes, Sir Robert, but what is your point?
If I am not mistaken, the member for Greenwich is liable to cumulative penalties of 1,500 pounds.
Yes.
Am I mistaken, Mr. Speaker?
No, you are not.
Will the government sue for the penalty?
The government will not, Sir Robert.
I protest.
That is your right, Sir Robert. But may I point out to you that Mrs. Salomons has a greater right to protest. If there is no further business, the House will adjourn.
There is something in the English spirit that cannot abide meanness or injustice. And it was as if there was now embodied in the voice of David Salomons the voice of the prophets of Israel, saying, "Proclaim liberty throughout the land." And England listened. There were only 30,000 Jews in all of England, but 300,000 Englishmen circulated and signed a petition for the removal of all disabilities. And the Houses of Parliament began to respond to the will of the people.
Milords, I introduce a bill for the purpose of striking out from the parliamentary oath such portions as are inoperative, idle, and absurd. And be it further resolved that when any of Her Majesty's subjects professing the Jewish religion shall make the said declaration, the words "upon the true faith of a Christian" shall be omitted.
I protest, Mr. Speaker.
Call the question. Call the question.
Gentlemen, the motion to amend the oath has been carried overwhelmingly.
May it please the Commons, it is my conviction that our act is retrospective, and the aggrieved member from Greenwich is in fact a legal member of this body.
David Salomon! I say David! Henry, stop this infernal carriage.
Yes, milady. Woo, woo.
Hello, David.
You look very well, Lady Russell.
You look even better, David, in Parliament.
It's very kind of you to say so.
That's where you've always belonged, David.
Thank you, milady.
Fiddlesticks, don't thank me. You belong among the peers of the realm. I hope the Queen makes you a lord someday.
And so does my wife. But the rabbi doesn't.
What's he got against the nobility?
Nothing. But another rabbi, someone called Shemaiah, once said, "Love labor, hate lordship, and seek no intimacy with those in authority."
Indeed. Is that in the Talmud, David?
I believe so, milady.
Interesting. You must send me a copy sometime. Do let me give you a lift.
Thank you, no, Lady Russell. I'll walk.
I always forget. It's your Sabbath, isn't it?
Yes, milady, I'm going to the synagogue.
It seems to me every time I see you, you're going to the synagogue.
Perhaps so. But tell me, Lady Russell, can you think of a better place for a man called Salomons to go?
So he went to the Duke's Place Synagogue, and he sat in the pew where later my father sat and where I sat. I suppose that's the history of any synagogue, the history of the men who stand before the tabernacle of the Lord and speak words of righteousness. Now the synagogue stands gutted and naked to the wind, and the tabernacle of Duke's Place is charred by fire. But there is so much in London that is charred by fire, and so much that will be built again, and built better. David Salomons will not see it, and I shall not see it, but it will be. I have faith in that, and in England, and in the generations of Israel. And that isn't a bad thing at all, is it?
Copies of the script, including the talk which follows immediately, may be obtained without cost by writing to the Jewish Theological Seminary of America, 3080 Broadway, New York 27, New York. And now we take pleasure in presenting a brief message from Dr. Robert Gordis, Rabbi of the Temple Bethel, Rockaway Park, Long Island, New York. Dr. Gordis is an associate professor at the seminary and president of the Tabernacle Assembly of America. Dr. Gordis.
These radio programs are dedicated to the oldest living institution in human history, the synagogue. It is eminently proper that in this series, sponsored by the Jewish Theological Seminary of America, we pay a special tribute to the great synagogue in London and to English Jewry as a whole. For the bonds linking the Jewish communities of Britain and the United States are strong and enduring. Not only do we share the immortal heritage of Judaism, but we are also united by the rich culture enshrined in the English language. In common with all other Americans, Jews in this country feel that they know intimately the streets of London, the spires of Oxford, the lakes of Scotland. Shakespeare and Boswell, Keats and Browning belong to both branches of the English-speaking world. But the unity of Britain and America has an even more fundamental link. This link is the Bible, the noblest achievement of Israel, and the proudest spiritual possession of the human race. Among no other people has the Bible wielded so mighty and direct an influence as among the English-speaking nations. Biblical legislation has influenced the religious life and legal institutions on both sides of the Atlantic. The historians, poets, and prophets of the Bible have kindled an unconquerable love of liberty and a hatred of injustice in men's hearts that have made the Anglo-Saxon world the home of democracy. Here it has reached its fullest development thus far and offers promise of peaceful growth in the future. The words of the late Supreme Court Justice Louis D. Brandeis may justly be applied to England as well as to the United States. The ideals of 20th century America have been the ideals of the Jew for 20 centuries. Human beings, to be sure, often fall below the ideals they profess. Yet freedom, justice, and brotherhood have not remained empty abstractions in the English-speaking world. It is noteworthy that both Great Britain and America have not been centers of oppression from which unfortunates have had to flee, but havens of refuge to which the victims of tyranny have come, finding safety and honor and freedom. These refugees of yesterday and today have enriched their adopted countries in times of peace, and today are defending them with unsurpassed loyalty and valor on the fields of war. It was in accordance with its great tradition that Great Britain took the historic step of righting the age-old wrong committed against the Jewish people and issued the Balfour Declaration, which the American people, its statesmen and leaders, have overwhelmingly supported. In this document, Great Britain promised to facilitate the establishment of a Jewish homeland in Palestine, now more than ever a crying need for untold numbers of Jews who have no other home to which to turn. The great synagogue in London was gutted by fire on the night of May 10th, 1941, in a Nazi air raid. But the Knesset Hagdolah, the great assembly of all free men who are battling for justice for all races, colors, and creeds, is indestructible. Our hands and our hearts are joined across the sea in that great struggle which must be won as a prelude to the day foretold by the prophet, when men shall do no evil and work no destruction on all God's holy mountain. For the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea.
Thank you, Dr. Gordis. Cantor David Putterman and the choir will now sing Adonai Elohei Yisrael, a composition by the music director of the Great Synagogue in London, England, Samuel Allman.
Adoshem Elokei Yisrael Shuv Mecharon Apecha Ve'hinochem Al Horovo Le'ah
Today's script was written by Morton Wissengrad. The orchestra was conducted by Henri Nasco, and the entire production was under the direction of Anton M. Leader. This was Chapter 4 in the series, The Eternal Light, presented as a public service by the National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations. The program was prepared under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Copies of the script may be obtained without cost by writing to the Jewish Theological Seminary of America, 3080 Broadway, New York, 27, New
spake unto Moses, saying, Command the children of Israel that they bring unto thee pure oil olive, beaten for the light, to cause the lamps to burn continually in the tabernacle of the congregation. And it shall be a statute forever in your generations. The eternal light.
The National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations bring you Chapter 5 of The Eternal Light. This public service program is prepared under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Our story today, written by Morton Wissengrad, is entitled The Black Death and features Joseph Wiseman. Following the dramatic portion of the program, you will hear a talk by Dr. Mordecai M. Kaplan.
Bubonic plague, an acute infectious disease transmitted by the rat flea and characterized by inflammation and suppuration of the lymph nodes, pneumonia, and cutaneous hemorrhage.
The septicemic form is very fatal. The pneumonic is even more so.
In the middle of the 14th century, the plague swept out of the Orient like a destroying angel to ravage the weak and the strong, the guilty and the good.
According to Hecker and other authorities, 1/4 of the population of Europe, 25 million people, died.
I died also. I, Judah, in the year 1349 in the city of Mayence in the valley of the Rhine. I died also, but not of the plague. I hate no one for it. 600 years is time enough to heal a wound or mend a scar. Moreover, it is written that he who hates his fellow man is unto one who sheds blood. And even in the grave I do not wish that. Believe this and believe also in my story, for before God I declare it is true. In an evil hour for the world, there came upon Europe a great pestilence. A man stood talking in the marketplace, smiling, seasoned, sound, and suddenly a palsy seized his tongue, and he opened his mouth, and the tongue within was black. They carried him to his bed, and there was no liquid to assuage the burning of his thirst. And he raised himself on his bed and coughed up his life's blood and died. Sometimes he fevered, sometimes he did not, but always he died. One of the first to die was a little boy. The priest stood over his coffin.
Et super nivem de albabor, misere mei Deus, secundum magnam misericordiam tuam, gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritu Sanctu, sicut erat in principio et nunc et semper et in saecula saeculorum. Amen.
Father Joseph.
My throat, something's in my throat.
Merciful God.
Stifling. Water, please. Father, what are you doing?
Father Joseph, he wants water.
Don't go near him. Please, water. Martha, come away. I order you.
He's just buried our son. Do you want me to refuse him a cup of water?
Where are you going?
To take him this cup.
No cup. Priest or no priest, he's taken the plague.
The contagion is in his breath. Do you want to die, you fool? Come away.
In the name of heaven, mercy. Help me. Will no one help me? I'm your priest.
There was no mercy in Europe. The supplicant had no mercy for the priest, the father for the child for the father. The dead lay where they died, and the sweet stink of putrefaction rose from the cities of the dead. Even in the fields there was a murrain upon the cattle. And then men sought for the cause. The rich accused the poor accused the rich. The patricians blamed the commoners found the blame in the rich. And then the wrangling, discordant, hysterical voices were suddenly stilled.
The Jews! Eh? What's that?
The Jews.
Well, what about them?
Nothing. Only, I wonder.
Wonder? What do you wonder? Do you...
Yes. Why not?
You might be right. I didn't think of it. Yes, you might be right. I'm going to talk to Peter. Peter. It could be the Jews. Psst. Old man. Do you hear? It's the Jews. Psst. Hilda. Peter saw them do it.
Was it poison?
Well, he didn't say, but it could be, couldn't it?
The old man says it's poison.
Are you sure?
He said so, didn't he?
They poisoned the well. How do you know? She told me. Well, what are we going to do about it? Yes, what are we waiting for? Make them confess.
That's it. Make them confess.
Do you confess?
Please don't hit me.
You put the poison in the well.
I swear on the Torah that I did.
We know you put it there.
I don't know anything.
Now, that's nothing. That's only a taste. Peter, put him to the torture. Get the thumb screws. We'll make him talk.
In the name of the merciful God, do not do this, my son.
Now, go away, Father. We didn't send for you.
I'm your priest.
So go back to your church.
My son, this is evil. This boy is innocent. You are committing a great wrong.
Peter, bring the thumb screws.
Wait, you cannot torture him. You must not.
Only a little, Father, until he talks.
I know the boy, I tell you. I know his mother. She is not of our faith, but she's a virtuous woman. You can't do this.
He poisoned the well.
No, I swear on the Torah that I didn't.
Wait, my son.
Now, you can't stop us.
I ask you, did you drink the water of the well?
That's not important.
It is important. I drank the water today and yesterday and the day before.
You lie.
I'm your priest.
I say you lie. Go away now. Go away before we have you stoned. Peter, what are you waiting for? Bring the thumb screws, I say.
He was a Jewish boy. Argument was his name. You will find it written down. They tortured him only a little, then a little more. The priest tried to interfere. They stoned their priest. He was not of my religion, but he was a man of God. I prayed for his soul. But as for the boy, he was only a boy, and the flesh is very weak.
You confess now?
I confess now.
You put the poison in the well.
Yes. I put it in.
What was the poison?
Anything you say.
Spiders and frogs.
All right.
Human flesh and lizards.
Yes. All right.
The rabbi made it into a powder for you.
You'll let me alone now, won't you?
Swear to it.
I swear.
Swear it by your Lord, and on your Torah, and on the Pentateuch.
They're the same thing.
Swear it anyhow.
I swear it.
Did you take that all down, Peter?
Will you let me go to my mother now?
Oh, no, that would be wrong. You must accept your punishment. Yes, you confessed, didn't you? Peter, take the murderer away.
By three things is the world preserved, said Rabbi Simon the son of Gamliel. By justice, by truth, and by peace. In the year 1348, there was no longer truth in Europe, no longer justice, no longer peace. There was a tumult over the earth, a corruption of the flesh, a rottenness of the mind. And even as men caught in the death rattle, other men raised gibbets and took cudgels and sharp knives, until the water of the river Rhine ran red with Jewish blood. In Strasbourg on St. Valentine's Day in the year 1349, they built a platform in the Jewish cemetery and burned the Jews. 2,000 men, women, and children. In Erfurt, the Jewish population was 3,000. Not one survived. There is something you must know. In the city of Avignon resided the Pope, Clement VI, and the Pope wept, and he issued a bull to the people of Europe.
My children, hear me. This that you do is a crime, not only against men, but against God. I appeal to the Christian sense of justice, and I appeal to you in the name of the imprescriptible rights of all mankind. I declare the innocence of the Jews regarding the charges leveled against them. In districts where no Jew resides, men die of the plague. Do not the Jews themselves die of the plague? I admonish the clergy to take the Jews under their protection. I pronounce a ban against the false accusers and the murderers. Be just, my children. I entreat you in the name of God to be just and to be merciful.
Perhaps they heard Clement VI, but if they heard, they gave no heed. In Zurich, in Basel, in Freiburg, in Speyer, in Worms, in Würzburg, in Frankfurt, God of Israel, in how many cities and villages was there murder and burning? And then it came to Mayence, the city where I was born and my father's father. August 1349. It is not a month you should forget, nor can I forget it. For then, in this month, it came to us in Mayence. It came to us.
Let me in! Open the door!
Jacob, what's the matter? You break the door down.
What's that in your hand, Judah?
You say it as though it were an infamous thing.
What's in your hand?
Why, what should be in my hand on the Sabbath? It's the book of the law.
You're out of your mind. The world is burning, and you read the book.
Why not? The day is short, the work is great, and the workmen are sluggish, and the reward is much. Remember?
I've no time for that. They sent me for you.
They?
The congregation. You think we're going to let ourselves be slaughtered? We're holding a meeting at the synagogue. Come, Judah. There's no time to lose. I think there's no more to say. There's no alternative but death for us. We must choose now whether we shall submit tamely to the assassin or whether we shall resist.
How can we resist, Jacob? We are 6,000. They are 10 times 6,000.
If they were 100 times 6,000, we must still resist.
With what? We have no arms.
Your naked fist, then. The stick you use for walking. A knife that cuts the Sabbath bread. Those are your weapons. Judah.
Yes, Jacob.
You came here with the Torah in your hand. Put it down and take up a club.
How can I, Jacob? The Torah begins with an act of love and it ends with an act of love. How can I put it down for a club, especially here in the synagogue?
Will you sing a psalm against your enemy, Judah? Are the scriptures written in milk? Have you never heard of David and Joshua and Judah Maccabee? The only way is to resist.
Jacob is right.
There must be another way, a better way.
Tell us, Judah.
These people are not all evil.
No?
No. No, Jacob, you've known them all your life. My friend Wilhelm, he's a good Christian. He'll not join with the rebel to murder his own friend.
Wilhelm is only one. There are 60,000 against us.
No. The men who stand against us are those who have forsaken their own Christianity. You know Muller and Sachs the Tanner and Obermeyer the Smith. You've known them all your lives. Can you believe? Can you believe that even in this time of madness that they would turn against you? I can't believe it.
Jacob, he's right.
You're fools, all of you. Who burned the houses of the Jews in Erfurt? Were they not men like the men you speak of? Who murdered the 2,000 innocent Jews of Strasbourg? The same kind of men.
Then let us appeal to their humanity.
Their humanity was appealed to in Strasbourg. And do not forget, Judah, that when you are killed, these men will take your house and whatever you own. They kill for hate, but also for greed.
I will not believe it, Jacob.
Then you have no eyes to see, no ears to hear. The Jews of Worms would not believe also. Where are the Jews of Worms? Where? Tell me where? They burn themselves in their own houses. Look among the ashes, Judah. Look, and tell me if you still have faith in justice or mercy.
I do, Jacob. I am a Jew, and I must have faith in the kindliness of men and in the righteousness of God. I appeal to you. I entreat you. Let me talk to our neighbors. Let me go among them and show them we are falsely accused. Let me speak against the bigotry, the superstition, the evil of this hour. Put up your barricades. Prepare to defend yourselves if you must. But first, let me try the way of God.
We have nothing to lose.
All right, Judah. You talk. We'll arm ourselves.
Yes. Very well, Judah. You take the Torah. That's your way. Go to your house, give your son your blessing, and then go out among them. Go, Judah. We'll stand in the synagogue and pray for you.
In the month of August, 1349, I went to my house and covered my books with rugs against the damp and the mice. Then, when I saw that the house was in order, I spoke to Aaron, who was my son.
Yes, Father?
Aaron, you know where I'm going?
Yes, Father.
You know I may not return?
I know.
If you live, Aaron, and I die, do this for me.
Anything you ask.
Wash me clean, Aaron. Comb my hair. Trim my nails. I want to go clean to the grave as I went clean to the synagogue every Sabbath day. Will you do this for me?
If I am alive to do it, Father, I will.
You're a good boy. Ask them to put me in the ground on the right side of my father. Even if the space is a little narrow, he loves me well enough to make room by his side.
Father, God watch over you, Father.
Thank you, Aaron. Now, do one more thing.
Yes?
I may not be home tonight. Will you say the night prayer now? I want to be sure you've said it.
But it is day now.
The sun does shine, Aaron, but it is night. Say it for me, please.
Yes, Father. Blessed art thou, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who makest the bands of sleep to fall upon mine eyes and slumber upon mine eyelids. May it be thy will, O Lord my God and God of my fathers, to suffer me to lie down in peace and to let me rise up again in peace. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Father!
Judah, it's you, Wilhelm.
Oh, where are you going? You can't go there.
It's very good of you, Wilhelm.
Turn back.
No, I must talk to them.
But they're coming to the ghetto with fire. You can't talk against fire.
You're a good man, Wilhelm. A good Christian.
I don't know what you're saying.
I'm grateful to you for the warning.
But they'll kill you if you go into the city.
They'll kill me if I stay.
Please. The priest was arguing with them. They struck him down.
I don't want to die, Wilhelm. I'm afraid. There's a queasiness in my stomach and a nausea in my mouth.
Well, then.
I must try to do what should be done.
Let me go with you, then.
No. For their sake, no. Better one murder on their hands than two murders. But I thank you for it, Wilhelm.
Can't I do something?
Yes, my friend. Go to the synagogue and tell Jacob that a Christian has come to admonish the Jews that the Torah still opens and closes with an act of love. On the morning of August 24th, 1349, they struck me down with a stone. The blood ran from my eyes and from my ears, yet I felt no pain. On the afternoon of August 24th, they attacked the houses of the Jews, and the Jews fought back. They fought with their fists, with their naked hands, and with whatever weapons they could seize. 200 of the attackers fell. But what was the good of it? They fell with the same scream of hate. The Jews barricaded themselves in their houses and in the synagogue, and when the defense was no longer possible, and when they were overpowered, they burned their houses down and their synagogue. They perished in the flames. 6,000 perished. Old men and infants in their mother's arms, and Jacob and Aaron, who was my son.
Bubonic plague, an acute infectious disease transmitted by the rat flea, very fatal in the septicemic form, even more so in the pneumonic form.
A petechial eruption and hemorrhages from mucous membranes often occur.
In the middle of the 14th century, 1/4 of the population of Europe, 25 million people, died.
I died also, Judah of Nain. But I did not die of the plague, nor my son Aaron. I died of another plague, a plague of fear and hate. And this is the plague that you yourselves must now destroy. Trust not yourself against it until the day of your death. For while hate endures, your synagogues, your churches rest on sand. Therefore turn your love to the struggle and your understanding also. For the day is short, and the work is great, and the workmen are sluggish, and the reward is much, and the master of the house is urgent.
Copies of the script, including the talk which follows immediately, may be obtained free of cost by writing to the Jewish Theological Seminary of America, 3080 Broadway, New York 27, New York. And now we take pleasure in presenting Dr. Mordecai M. Kaplan, Dean of the Teachers Institute and Professor of the Homiletics of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Dr. Kaplan.
As you listened to the weird tale of the martyred Jew of Mayence, you must have wondered why we should want to rake up such gruesome memories. The answer is that for the good of our souls, it is often necessary to dig up from the subconscious the remembrance of long-forgotten events which have left deep scars on our spirits, scars of fear, of bitterness, and of hatred. Psychiatrists tell us that the best way to heal such scars is to bring them out into the open, where the light of knowledge and the air of goodwill can play upon them. The Black Death in the 14th century was one of those tragic events which reveal how close we humans live to the deep abyss of collective madness and mass insanity. It is urgent, therefore, to make as strong as possible the fences that can keep us from going over the edge. Under the stress of panic, men are apt to lose that heritage of common sense and decency which we call civilization or culture. When masses of men are crazed by pain or dread, they fall into a rage and vent their fury upon whatever happens to be at hand. Every time great wrath and devastation befell the European peoples, Jews were always around for the maddened populace to tear to pieces. All papal decrees and all appeals to reason had then as much chance as a candle flame in a hurricane. The aftermath of such a debauch of collective outrage is always a feeling of guilt. Only few relieve that feeling by making proper amends. The rest suppress their guilt feeling because it hurts their self-esteem. They suppress it by working up a case against the victim. It is far easier for one who has been wronged to forgive the wrongdoer than it is for the wrongdoer to forgive his victim. This is because the wrongdoer keeps on persuading himself that his victim must have deserved all he got and more. He then proceeds to finish in cold blood what he has left undone when in a state of fury. This accounts for the trail of blood and tears which led to the martyrdom of the Jews during the pestilences of 14th century Europe, and which has thence led to the wholesale slaughter of over 3 million Jews of 20th century Europe. It is therefore an occasion of gratitude that 27 years ago the British government and other nations, including our own, took steps to help restore the ancient Jewish settlement in the Holy Land. There, many thousands of Jews who would otherwise be exposed to peril and death are today finding refuge from persecution. This settlement has now grown to more than 600,000 souls. In accordance with the word of the prophet, we may look forward to a day when that settlement will reach far greater proportions. Indeed, it may yet in our time fulfill the vision of the seer who said, "Arise, shine, for thy light has come, and nations will walk by thy light."
Thank you, Dr. Kaplan. The liturgical music of the German synagogue is predominantly the work of Lewandowski. Cantor David Putterman and the choir now sing Lewandowski's Tzaddik Katomor Yifrak. The righteous will flourish like the palm tree. Presented Chapter 5 of The Eternal Light. The script was written by Morton Wishengrad and featured Joseph Wiseman as Judah. The music was conducted by Henri Nasco. The liturgical music was sung by Cantor David Putterman and the choir, and Dr. Mordecai M. Kaplan was the speaker. The entire production was under the direction of Anton M. Leader. This program came to you as a public service of the National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations, and was prepared under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Copies of the script may be obtained without cost by writing to the Jewish Theological Seminary of America, 3080 Broadway, New York 27, New York. This program came to you from New York City. This is the National Broadcasting Company.
Unto Moses, saying, Command the children of Israel that they bring unto thee pure oil olive, beaten for the light, to cause the lamps to burn continually in the tabernacle of the congregation. And it shall be a statute forever in your generation. The eternal light.
The National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations bring you Chapter 7 of The Eternal Light. This public service program is prepared under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Our story today, written by Morton Wishengrad, features Roger D. Coben.
Listen to the sound. Listen to the sound of the iron loom. We ride invisible in the stratosphere on a filament of air, but the sound weaves like a shuttle. Eastward from England, westward from Russia, crossing near the place where the 53rd parallel intersects the 13th meridian, a place called Berlin. And east I ride, and west I ride on the flying shuttle you call a Liberator.
Pilot to waist gunner. Pilot to waist gunner. Hey, Joe Berger, wake up.
Yeah, Pat?
We're over White Russia. Look out till it's 9 o'clock. That's Mogilev.
You sure?
Sure, I'm sure. It's Mogilev, all right. Thought you'd want to know.
Yes. Yes, I do want to know. I want to know when to look down on Mogilev from the sky. Staff Sergeant Joe Berger looking down on Mogilev from the sky. Abraham Berger looked up once from the ghetto. I wonder what he saw. Perhaps a blackbird flying or a dry leaf on the wing. Perhaps nothing. In 1880, in the ghetto of Mogilev, my father did not look up much.
What is there to look up for? In the ghetto, you do not look up. If God is with you, you sit in the synagogue and read the Holy Scroll. And if not, you stand in the store beside Uncle Eliezer to wait on a customer. What will it be today, Mrs. Bernstein?
What would it be, Eliezer? A present for the Tsar? Herring! And not from the top of the barrel.
Abraham, you heard Mrs. Bernstein. A herring, not from the top of the barrel. Be quick. And wrap it up in clean newspaper. I wrapped it in clean newspaper for Mrs. Bernstein. A woman with a wig as to a head, a wart as to a nose, and a stutter as to a tongue. A pious woman, God bless her. This is how I helped Uncle Eliezer. Uncle Eliezer was very good to me. He was as good to me as my father would have been. May he rest in peace. Sabbath Eve, I would go to the synagogue with him and say Amen in all the right places. And then we would go home, and Aunt Bryna would put the meal before us. And then we would sing Shalom Aleichem, which is proper. And he would take my aunt by the hand and read to us from the 31st chapter of the book of Proverbs, which is also proper for the Sabbath.
Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. She seeketh wool.
He read this to us each Sabbath, as was done in every household where the wife is good and beloved. This is a fitting thing to be read on the Sabbath, for is not the Sabbath meant for joy and for happiness, and not for sorrow?
Many daughters have done virtuously, but thou excellest them all. Favor is deceitful, and beauty is vain. But a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gate.
Then Aunt Bryna died in childbirth. They wrapped her in linen. My uncle himself put the 3 pieces of broken pottery on her lips and eyes. He would let no one else do it. Many weeks later, when he had begun to speak again, he took me to the Cheder. It was a good school, and the teacher said to me,
"Listen, boy. Here is your first lesson. As Hillel says, an empty-headed man cannot be sin-fearing, nor can an ignorant person be pious, nor can a shame-faced man learn, nor a passionate man teach. Remember that. Now perhaps you can tell me something. Which is greater, the priesthood or the Torah?"
This, you will admit, is not a question which can be answered standing on one leg, especially for a boy. God was with me, though, and I answered that the Torah was greater than the priesthood. And Uncle Eliezer smiled for the first time, and the teacher gave me a pinch on the ear. And so I went to Cheder and learned. I do not wish to boast, but when I was 2 years old, soon after my father and mother died of the smallpox, may they rest in peace, I could already say the alphabet from Aleph to Sod. It was natural, therefore, that I should be a quick student. Yet, strangely, Uncle Eliezer was not satisfied, for he went to enter me in the Russian school, where I could learn to be an engineer.
I'm sorry, but there is a quota, my friend. Only 1 Jewish student for every 9 Christians.
But, Your Excellency...
9 to 1, my friend. That's the quota.
Then can Abraham be one? He is a fine boy.
No doubt. But he'll have to wait his turn.
How long will it take?
3 years, perhaps 5, 7, who knows?
Suppose the ghetto organized its own school.
That is not allowed. It is the Tsar's law.
I see. I suppose it's no use, then.
That depends.
Oh, you mean... But you say the quota is fixed.
And it also can be adjusted, if you know how. Say, for 50 rubles.
The Tsar's law, Your Excellency.
The Tsar is in St. Petersburg drinking vodka. This is Mogilyev. 50 rubles and the boys admitted. What do you say?
I'll have to think about it.
Don't think too long. Next week the price will be 75 rubles.
I remained with Reb Chaim. In the ghetto of Mogilyev, 50 rubles was a great sum of money, not easy to come by. Uncle Eliezer was sad, but I began to grow up. I realized suddenly what it meant to be a Jew in Tsarist Russia. And now I began to notice many things and to hear many things.
What's that on your head?
My skull cap, Your Excellency.
Who gave you permission to wear it?
But, sir, I am an Orthodox Jew. I must wear it.
So you must wear it, eh?
Yes, Your Excellency.
And it's your religion.
It is, Your Excellency.
Is your religion worth 1 silver ruble to you?
I don't know what you mean. 1 silver ruble. It's a tax, Jew. A tax for wearing a skull cap. Hand it over.
Yes, I was growing up. I learned that a Jew could not leave the ghetto, that a Jew could not own land, that a Jew was abused because he had to live in the city, that a Jew paid a tax for the privilege of eating meat and drinking wine and milling flour and walking the road. The faces grew pinched in the ghetto of Mogilev, and my uncle spoke less and watched silently. Around us the fields were white with buckwheat, and the forests were thick with birch and ash, but the air was heavy and charged, as though before a rain. Rosh Hashanah, the New Year, came, and my uncle said,
Leshana Tovo Tikosevu.
Leshana Tovo Tikosevu. May you be inscribed for a good year. He said it uncertainly, half afraid. And this is how we spent the Holy Week, half afraid. On the Day of Atonement, he put on his special prayer shawl, and we went together to the synagogue. The men of the congregation stood before the ark and saw the Holy Scrolls taken out as the cantor sang Kol Nidre.
There's no cause for alarm. Be quiet, everyone. It's just a window that's fallen in. Just a window. Please be quiet and continue the service.
He had asked him to be quiet, but under his shawl he held the stone that had broken the window. Uncle Eliezer stood quietly for a moment. Then he made a sign for me not to follow, and he went out of the synagogue. I waited for him, but he did not return. And then when the services were over, I went outside with the others. There was my Uncle Eliezer. Eliezer, the kind, gentle man, on the ground. And blood was on the ground. And the stone was still in his hand. I do not think they meant to kill him. Men cannot be so cruel. Perhaps it was a joke. He'd done them no wrong, no injury. It was he who was injured. Perhaps that's why they killed him. Men cannot forgive those whom they have injured. It must be so. I was a man now. 3 times each day I went to the synagogue and chanted the mourner's prayer for Uncle Eliezer to the prescribed time of 11 months. And for 11 months my garments were rent over my heart to the width of 4 inches, and the face mirror in the house was turned to the wall, and I heard no music, nor was I consoled by idle pastimes. And now I was truly an orphan in the ghetto and a stranger within the gates. And my years to manhood were a sour thing, without joy and without hope. Until one day I saw Shoshana.
I love you also, Abraham.
Truly you were well named, Shoshana. You were a rose of Sharon.
I have no marriage portion to bring you, Abraham.
What do you call your eyes?
Only eyes?
They're gray. They make me writhe like Hananiah or Nebuchadnezzar's furnace.
I have a very scholarly lover.
Oh, don't laugh at me, Shoshana. I know I say foolish things, but my tongue is thick in my mouth and my heart is hurting my ribs.
I know.
Like that with you?
Yes, like that.
Then I have the strength to ask you.
Is it about the future?
Yes, Shoshana.
The future is uncertain. Let us be happy now. Speak about the present, Abraham.
Well, the present is also uncertain.
All right. I shall listen.
Will you wait for me?
Are you leaving Mogilev?
Never to return, I hope.
Oh.
Wait, Shoshana. I'm going to America. I shall go to America and work hard and save every kopeck and send for you. Will you come when I send for you?
Yes, I will come.
Then it won't be long. I swear it. May my right arm wither.
No, don't swear, Abraham. I know that you will send for me, and when you send, I shall come. Take it now.
It is said, the Torah shall be health to thy navel and marrow to thy bones. These things and more was Shoshana to me. There in the ghetto, in a mean wooden house between the kitchen chair and the tile oven, I kissed her lips, and the house was no longer mean, and the ghetto was no longer without beauty. And after I had applied for my passport and paid the necessary bribe to the commissioner, Shoshana stood by my side and held my wicker hamper, and there were no tears in her gray eyes.
God bless you, Abraham. God bless you and keep you from harm.
Goodbye, Shoshana.
Wait. I've asked my father to search among the wise sayings for a gift for you. He has written it for me.
Read it, Shoshana.
Only take heed to thyself and keep thy soul diligently, lest thou forget things which thine eyes saw.
Only take heed to thyself and keep
thy soul diligently.
Keep thy soul diligently, lest thou forget the things which thine eyes saw. I will not forget, Shoshana. From Mogilev to Gomel, from Gomel to Kiev, from Kiev to Odessa, how many versts of gray eyes did it give me? And from Odessa down the Black Sea, through the Bosphorus, into the Mediterranean, and across the wide ocean. Is it not time enough and distance enough and wonder enough to make a tongue lose its thickness and a heart its longing? Do not believe it. This is how I came to America. At Castle Garden, the immigration inspectors opened the wicker hamper, and a doctor listened to my heart, and not being wise enough to hear the beat of longing, they let me through. I was in New York. It was the deluge, and I was without an ark, friendless, alone, with no money in my pocketbook. I was in America and frightened. So I asked the man how to get to Reb Chaim's second cousin's brother, who lived in a rooming house in Savannah, Georgia, which couldn't be far from New York.
If that's the language you're talking, I don't know a word you think. I tell you what, just take the first trolley that comes along. Here it comes. That's it.
Providence was with me. I had a coin in my hand, and I gave it to the man who drove the trolley. I rode for many versts. When I thought it was time, I asked if we had come to Savannah, Georgia.
I can't make out what you're saying. You better get off and ask a policeman. There he is, right there.
I got off the trolley and went to a man in a blue uniform who looked like a Cossack but who spoke no Russian.
What? Can't you speak a tongue I can understand?
I was lonely and troubled. The man in the blue uniform only made me more bewildered.
Hey, Ollie! Oh, it's you, Finnerty. Here's a customer for you.
A cash customer?
A guest of the city, Finnerty.
Oh, who says?
I says.
And the traction company, what'll it say?
That one fare more or less won't bankrupt them. Now drop him off at the Immigrant Aid Society, Finnerty. Along with you now, Greenhorn. Finnerty doesn't have all day.
At the Immigrant Aid Society, they gave me milk to drink and bread to eat, and I felt better. Then a man whom I did not know gave me a lecture which I did not understand and a book which I could not read, and he also pressed something into my hand.
Go on, take it. It's not charity. Go on, you'll pay it back. Oh, take it. It's $3.
Truly a wonderful land. I walked for many blocks with the $3 in my pocketbook. And finally, on the Lower East Side, I met many who spoke my language. Even one called Epstein, who had been born in Mogilev.
The first thing to do is cut off your sidelocks, Abraham. This is America. We have no Tsar here, and the president doesn't like sidelocks.
Well, does the president know about sidelocks?
One day in America, and he's already asking questions? Of course the president knows. That's why he's the president. Now, you also need a shave and some decent clothes. I'll lend you one of my suits.
That's very good of you.
I came from Mogilev once, didn't I? Where are you going to sleep?
In the synagogue?
You're a regular greenhorn. Here we don't sleep in the synagogue. You sleep in my house till you find a room.
Thank you.
Now, about work. Are you a tailor?
No.
I didn't think so. There's good money working by cloaks. Too bad. Are you a shoemaker?
No, I study the Talmud.
Don't be foolish. Here, studying the Talmud is strictly for pleasure. It's not a business. All right, you'll have to be a peddler. Now, you have $3. I'll lend you 2 more. Buy some shoelaces, some needles, some threads, some hairpins, some cheesecloth, hooks and knives, thimbles.
Oh, where will I buy it?
From me, of course. Don't worry, cost price.
Oh, who'll buy from me?
Tomorrow you'll take the ferry. I'll show you where. Far out in Brooklyn, at the end of the trolley lines, there are farms. You don't even have to know how to speak English. Just knock on the door and show your merchandise.
But, how?
Questions. How? What? Why? Listen. You'll knock on the door like this. Then the housewife will come out, look at your basket, and pick up a package of needles, let us say. Just hold up 5 fingers, and she will give you 5 cents. That's all there is to it.
I did as Epstein said, and in 2 days I had sold my merchandise. I liked peddling. I saw many things, and I listened carefully to the way people spoke. And in a week I did not have to hold up my fingers, but I could speak the price. And in 2 weeks I could say more things. And then I went to school at night. It was a fine big place on Hester Street. I learned to write and to speak and to read. Every day I sold thimbles and spools of thread, and every night I went to school and studied and made the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. These things I wrote to Shoshana, and she could not believe it. I wrote the things that I saw, and I told her how I was learning the language and had become a citizen, and the lectures I went to hear at Cooper Union, and how I saved my money for her passage. This was happiness. On the Sabbath, Epstein and I would go to the synagogue, and once on a Sunday morning we went uptown to Carnegie Hall and heard a famous rabbi deliver a talk in English. It was about America and what we owed to it. And he quoted from Shakespeare. And after the talk, Epstein said,
Who is this Shakespeare? Is he from Mogilev?
Of course not. He's a famous writer.
It irritates me. All the time he mentions Shakespeare.
Well, why not?
If Shakespeare has anything to say, let him come and say it himself.
Epstein, don't be a fool. Shakespeare is dead almost as many years as you have sinned.
Then why doesn't that ornament of a rabbi speak of people who are living?
You don't understand.
Oh, so now you understand. Now you're telling me. Look who's telling me. Who's longer in America, huh? Who lent you $2?
Which I paid back, thank you.
That's neither here nor there. Now, let me tell you something. When it comes to understanding, I'm not a greenhorn. I know a few things myself. I'm a businessman.
He quarreled with me for 2 days about Shakespeare until we went to 2nd Avenue together and heard Jacob Adler play King Lear in Yiddish. Then there were no more quarrels.
Do you know something, Abraham? When you graduate school, I'll give you a present. A set Shakespeare in English.
But I had a better present. Shoshana. There were pogroms in Elizabethgrad and in Berdichev, and it was time for her to come to America. More than time. We were married in the synagogue on Essex Street, and we went to live on East Broadway, a fine street near the park. I was making a living, and we didn't have to take in boarders. Shoshana was very proud of me, and I said nothing, but my heart was full to overflowing. Truly, she was a rose of Sharon, and more. He also had a head on his shoulders, which I always knew, but perhaps which I did not appreciate enough. Until that day after the Purim festival when I had a cold.
Mm-hmm.
Out.
You're not leaving this house, Abraham.
Oh, it's nothing. Just a cold in my nose.
Listen to it. You're staying home.
No, I have to tend to my business.
Your customers can wait.
No.
I say yes. Besides, you can take care of your business from the house.
How? Oh, excuse me.
You went to school. You know how to write.
Well...
Send a letter to every customer. Put a postcard in every letter with your address on the front, and in the back, mark down everything you sell.
Oh.
Thimbles, spools, cheesecloths, shoe polishes, everything. All they have to do is to make a cross for whatever they want. Sign their names, drop it in the box, and you'll send it to them by mail. I'll help you.
A regular bail order business. Is that what you mean, Shoshana?
Why not? Now you sit there and don't move. I'm getting you a glass of tea with lemon.
All right, Shoshana.
And that is how I stopped being a peddler and entered the mail order business. Such a simple thing, but her idea. You wonder that I loved her and that our life was good. The Lord was good to us. In time, we had 2 sons. They grew like the cedars of Lebanon. But then, in America, would you expect less? And on the Sabbath, I did not forget my Uncle Eliezer. And with my sons beside me and Shoshana before my eyes, I opened the Bible to the book of Proverbs. She openeth her mouth with wisdom, and on her tongue is the law of kindness. Many daughters have done virtuously, but thou excellest them all. Give her of the fruit of her hand, and let her own works praise her in the gate. And do you think it was only for Shoshana that I read these words? It was for something else. For something that gave me a pillow for my head and a shade tree against the sun. For a land of schools and friendly people and cheerful spirits. For a new land as open-hearted as the old land was narrow. Yes, I read these words also for the new land and my land. I say it again to America. Give her of the fruits of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates.
Listen to the sound. Listen to the sound of the iron loom. We ride invisible in the stratosphere on a filament of air, but the sound weaves like a shuttle. Eastward from England, westward from Russia, crossing near the place where the 53rd parallel intersects the 13th meridian. A place called Berlin. And east I ride, and west I ride on a flying shuttle you call the Liberator.
Hey, Joe Berger, look out towards 9 o'clock. You know what it is?
Yeah, I know. It's Muggerland. Free and without a ghetto.
Say, what are you batting about, Joe?
Not a thing, Pat. Not a blessed thing. Come on, let's fly on toward Germany. We've got some business there.
You're not kidding.
I will say it for myself, and I will say it for them. Only take heed to thyself and keep thy soul diligently, lest thou forget the things which thine eyes saw.
Today's script was written by Morton Wishengrad. The music was written by Henry Brandt and was conducted by Henri Nosco. The entire production was under the direction of Anton M. Leader. Cantor David Putterman sang the liturgical music. This was Chapter 7 in the series, The Eternal Light, prepared by the Jewish Theological Seminary and presented as a public service by the National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations. Copies of the script may be obtained without cost by writing to the Jewish Theological Seminary of America, 3080 Broadway, New York 27, New York. We wish to thank the NBC University of the Air for permission to present today's script, heard recently over many of these stations as part of the series, They Call Me Joe. This program came to you from New York City. This is the National Broadcasting Company.